Hey, I'm Kevin, and this is HFX by Bike, a channel all about getting around Halifax by bike. In today's video, I'm making an early morning trip from my place in West End Halifax to Bedford Tower in Bedford. It was a foggy fall morning when I recorded this, so a portion is a bit obstructed by moisture on the lens. I initially wasn't planning on releasing it, but people seemed pretty interested when I mentioned I was making this trip, so I'm going to release it as kind of a bonus episode before the holidays. As always, I'll be playing a game of +1 -2 along the way. Every time I run into something that makes my trip safer or more convenient, I'll add a point, and every time I run into something that makes it less safe or less convenient, I'll take 2 away. You can keep track of how I think the ride is going by looking at the heads-up display in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm starting out at my place on Quinpool. This short multi-use path is going to connect me to the Windsor Street painted bike lanes. I'm going to use the lanes to head north to Almond Street. This is the Windsor-Chebucto-Kennard intersection, also affectionately known as the Quantum intersection, as what you're meant to be doing is always at least a little bit uncertain due to the misaligned roads. The bike lane pops out of existence to give drivers a left turn lane. I've been on the road for less than 2 minutes, and I've already seen at least 6 other bikes. Making the left turn from Windsor onto Almond, I lose the bike lane. The fog is starting to build up on the lens, and it is going to get pretty bad for a little bit as I go lower and lower into it, but it will clear up as I make my climb up into Fairview. This area is a school zone, so there's some traffic calming in place. This 2-way bike ramp is going to get me onto the Bears Road multi-use path. This intersection has a facilitated crossing at the mall entrance, but also multiple conflict points between pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers moving at speed. The drops at these intersections are really aggressive. The bridge only has space for one direction at a time, so this is on foot for a bit. The bridge itself has had some patchwork done, and so I'm happy to report that you're no longer likely to roll your ankle on a crumbling sidewalk. There's a new section of path on the other side of the bridge, and there's even a guardrail blocking the road. The ramp offloads onto a kind of undeclared bikeway that's going to take me to the facilitated crossing at Joe Howe Drive. This ramp is a relatively new addition to the bike network, and it facilitates the climb up to Joe Howe Drive at a pretty reasonable grade. There's a signal-protected facilitated crossing at Joe Howe Drive, and it's going to connect me to the Chain Lakes Trail, although I'm barely going to be using it for this trip. The city's recommended route for this kind of trip takes me up through Fairview, although the trail doesn't really make that connection, so I'm going to dismount quickly and use the sidewalk to get to Westwald. This could easily be a trail extension. This is a really steep climb. The streets going east-west through Fairview are all mostly the same grade, so there's not really going to be a particularly easy way of doing this. The reason the city recommends going through Fairview is that there's no bike infrastructure connecting the peninsula to the Bedford Highway, so this detour is basically down to a lack of bike infrastructure. On the upside, the sun is starting to come out a bit more, and as I'm climbing out of the fog, my lens is going to start to clear up. This is a 30km/h school zone, but everyone's doing closer to 50. Making the turn onto Main Avenue, which is a major road. These are the Dunbrack Street painted bike lanes, and I'm going to use them to head north to get to Kearney Lake Road. This is my first time using the Dunbrack painted bike lanes during rush hour, and honestly, I find being separated from this volume and speed of traffic by a strip of paint kind of unpleasant. I'm having to pump my brakes to keep under the speed limit, so how are all these drivers passing me? The Dunbrack painted lanes end at Kearney Lake Road. This is the Bedford Highway, and it has painted lanes that pick up just after the intersection. Drivers periodically lose control of their cars, and to prevent them from landing in the harbor, the city has installed guardrails. I, on my bike, am between the cars and the guardrails. There's no curb or pedestrian space here, so the parking lot, bike lane, and traffic lane are all melted together into a single continuous surface. You'd be forgiven for wondering if you were even still in a bike lane if you weren't familiar with how this road works. There's a turn lane at Nelson's Landing Boulevard that eats up the space that goes towards the bike lanes, and rather than have bikes merge into traffic through the intersection, there's a separate path for bikes along the side. The bike lane cuts out on approach to the intersection with Hammonds Plains Road, and you have to merge into traffic. The bike lane picks back up on the other side of the intersection. This is the furthest extent of the lanes in this direction, but they connect directly to the much quieter Shore Drive via this path. Shore Drive itself is a very low traffic, slow speed street with some basic traffic calming in place. I'm as close as I can get to my destination on Shore Drive, so I'm moving through Fish Hatchery Park to get back to the Bedford Highway. I'm back on the Bedford Highway without any bike infrastructure, but it's only going to be for a little bit. And I'm just going to do a quick loop around the building to confirm what I already think, but there doesn't appear to be anywhere to park my bike. My trip from West End Halifax to Bedford Tower in Bedford took 50 minutes at a very casual pace. This is considerably slower than the 18 to 35 minutes it would take to drive outside of rush hour, but not that far behind the estimated 25 to 50 minutes it would take to drive during rush hour. It's somewhat faster than transit, which would clock in at about 60 to 70 minutes. Most of the trip was made through either low traffic streets or in one form of bike infrastructure or another. This comes with a significant downside of introducing a large detour through Fairview, Clayton Park, and Rockingham to get around the lack of bike infrastructure on the Bedford Highway south of Kearney Lake Road. The city's recommended Fairview detour adds significant hills and about 10 minutes of extra travel time relative to just biking along the Bedford Highway, assuming that you're able to make the climb at all. Overall, this trip is technically doable, but it's probably at the outer range of distance and travel time that people would consider for a realistic daily commute. Travel time, general safety, and convenience could be improved substantially with a direct bike connection between the Bedford Highway and the peninsula. If you're interested in seeing a less fog-impacted version of this trip in the opposite direction and not using the Fairview detour, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to add it to the schedule. That's it for this one. Let me know what kinds of trips around the city you'd like to see covered or local businesses that I should visit by going to the video request map linked in the description. And if you like this kind of thing, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.